Hello guys, how are you? So if you guys don't cheer up, I'm gonna make you guys do Gangnam Style, okay? So be a little more like attentive to this. We're gonna have a lot of fun. I'm gonna talk about the graph network. Basically, it's more about decentralizing a centralized MVP and seeing how the pros and cons of the whole ecosystem and this kind of a product works. I'm sure some of you know what the graph is, but we are still going to go in deep aesthetics, understanding how it works, right? So I hope you come along with me. I would suggest you guys to take some kind of a notes to understand things. And yeah, let's do it. So basically, Agent Node is the company I work for, but the graph is in general is a protocol, and there are certain core devs to that. And I believe that's one of the great ways to making a protocol work. It's not like you have a centralized infrastructure or a company which is being governing everything. It's rather all the independent like organizations working together to make a protocol. So basically, the graph foundation is the one governing the protocol, and there are different core devs and individual contributors working on that. Some of them, namely Agent Node, which was the initial team behind it, and then so on and so forth. It progressed. So why the graph? Basically, I know being in Korea for 2 or 3 days, I can tell you some of you guys are all living on your mobiles, and you must be using Instagram, right? So how many times you read from Instagram versus how many times do you write into Instagram? What I mean is that how many times you are reading different posts, you are seeing different posts, versus how many times are you actually giving a post. It's like 1 versus 1,000. You're writing one time, you're posting a picture one time, and you are getting the information 1,000 or 10,000 times, right? So basically, writing inside a blockchain is an important thing, and we have lots of L1s and L2s and some great presentations over there. But I believe reading from a blockchain is as much or sometimes even more of an important thing than just writing inside a blockchain. If you don't make that efficient, then I'm sure you will not be able to have a decentralized blockchain protocol to make that the next Web3, to have different kind of developer ecosystems developed on it, right? And the graph makes you read from the blockchain. Blockchain is a security-first model in which you have blocks which are giving different informations and data types. But you need that information sequenced and via APIs to your different applications, and that's something which is not possible without the use of certain kind of infrastructure. One is that you create your own indexer and make it work, and I would say that's not the most efficient as well as decentralized way to do it. The second way is to keep on having a listener listening to a particular block and keep on going from one place to another, listening to different data types in the block. That's again a very inefficient as well as lagging term to get that information out. And that's why you have the graph. So if you need any kind of an information from a blockchain, this is the number you have to query. This is the total number of blocks you will have to query to get a single information. For example, somebody created a maker vault back in 2019 or something. You want to get that kind of an information, you'll have to query every block in the blockchain, which is like 15 lakh or something, which is like 1.5 million some blocks, just to get that one particular information. Just imagine the amount of server requests you will be throwing into a Ethereum blockchain to get that information. If you want that whole information in the right manner, why not rupturing your servers? I believe you guys have to use the graph. So, this is a Uniswap subgraph. Basically, whatever information is stored inside the Uniswap, whenever you trade, let's say you do a swap on Uniswap, right? And you need to get some kind of information outside. So either the first way that Uniswap could have done it is have their own indexer, run the servers, and get that information, which is again not efficient, or build a subgraph. And that's what they did. A subgraph is basically telling the graph node that this is the kind of information you will have to keep in touch to get that information for me, right? And this is how you do it. You create a subgraph, you deploy it on the hosted service or the network, which is something we are going to talk about in some time. Once you get that particular thing inside, then the graph node does all the work for you. At the end, you get this simple GraphQL API, which you can query to get all the information. And that's why I believe subgraphs are an important part of the Web3 stack. If you're building a Web3 dApp, then you have two choices. One is you build it on a centralized infrastructure and call it Ethereum server-based application, right? Or you will have to use a Web3 stack to make that happen. And I believe with the graph, this is something we are moving forward with decentralization. And believe me, there are lots and lots of black swan events that happen. And there is a very famous quotation I would like to, again, re-surround that decentralization matters until it does not. Decentralization does not matter until it does, right? And for those kind of events, you need to rely on something like the graph to get the information outside. Again, so this is the dashboard they created with the API via the subgraph they have, and I think everybody in the crowd must have used Uniswap right now. So basically, every dApp, I think most of the dApps in Web3, which call them decentralized, do use subgraphs to get information from the blockchain. How does the subgraph fit in a particular use case, right? You have smart contracts. From that smart contracts, you have events. You're putting that information inside the smart contract, getting into the UI. But you need something in between for the information to be traveling to the UI. Either you can listen to events, which is, again, not sustainable, or use or create subgraphs. And that's why we need subgraphs. All right. So we are live on 39 chains right now. And we are a big believer of multi-chain world. Near all the EVM, most of the EVM chains, and some non-EVM chains, like even Cosmos, and Near. So definitely you guys should check it out. But we believe that there is something that if we are building Web3 infrastructure, it has to be decentralized. There does not have to be any centralized point through which you can get certain kind of failures. And that was the reason we built subgraphs. That was the reason we built the graph network, right? So initially, back in 2019, when the graph launched the hosted service, it was with a vision to index blockchains, right? And to get that information in a decentralized manner was the second phase of progressively decentralizing the MVP, which was really something that was useful for the industry. And that's why in 2021, we launched the Graph Network, which is the decentralized version of the Graph's hosted service, which we can see right now. So what's the difference between the Graph's hosted service versus the decentralized network? The hosted service is a SaaS kind of a product in which whenever you deploy a subgraph, that's being running on the servers of a particular place, just a single place. Also, that's why there is single point of failures. And if there is a big event that's happening, that there is a chance that that single server fails. And if you believe in decentralization, there is no way or no possibility that any infrastructure which is decentralized will ever stop. There is a chance that Google.com will crash, but there is no chance that HTTPS protocol will ever crash. So if you're building on a protocol, there is no chance that it has single points of failure, and that's why we launched the Graph Network. The hosted service is a SaaS product where you can go. It was a kind of nice MVP to make sure that what we used is something which is required by the industry, and we wanted to decentralize it to make sure there is a product market fit. Once we found that, we launched the Graph Network. The Graph Network is the way to decentralize the querying of information, and we are going to learn how do we do that. So there are different participants in the Graph Network. It's not like a SaaS product in which you just log in via Google, get the information via API, and you're happy. That's not how it works. In the Graph Network, there are different participants. And I believe if you are if you are very techie, you can have a role in the Graph Network. If you are a little techie, as in you understand some kind of subgraphs, what are different dApps that exist in the industry, You can, again, go on a particular, you can be one of the participants. If you're not, you just want to be like, a part of the big mission that we are, then also you can be a participant in the network. And that's what we are going to learn now. So the first participant in the network is the curator. The curator tells the whole graph marketplace that, okay, this is an important subgraph that you should index, right? So basically, whenever a subgraph is posted on the graph network, then there is curation signal that happen on that subgraph to tell the different participants that, yes, this is an important subgraph and you should index it. Just imagine a DeFi protocol versus a socials protocol. I believe the DeFi protocol would require much more decentralization than the centralized, something like a socials protocol. That's what I believe. And that's why I believe there should be more ways to make that decentralization happen. And that's what curators do. Curators make sure that there is an important, very, very important piece which is deployed on the graph network that people are querying, and it should have even less single points of failure. It should have more people being a part of it, and that's the role of curators, right? So what's the second part, and the most technical and the most important piece of the whole infrastructure? The indexers. The indexers index the whole subgraph for you. If you are making a decentralized application, you would want to be indexed, getting your information, whatever subgraph information you told, to be put or being portrayed via an API. And the indexers are the ones which are indexing that blockchain information that you need for you guys. So indexers are one of the most important piece of the infrastructure. I would say one of the most technical piece of the infrastructure as well as I would say they are the ones which make your life easier because you don't have to run your own indexers. These people actually run the whole infrastructure. They give your give whatever query you want to the world, but only if there is curation on a subgraph. If you deploy a very test network kind of a subgraph on the network, there'll be less curation. If there is less curation, there'll be less indexing on your particular subgraph. The third one is delegators. You can say they are a kind of passive income people on the network. If you have the graph tokens and you want to passively earn from that, you can delegate to a particular indexer so that you can get rewards. The fourth one are maybe the developers, also known as consumers of the graph network. Those people who want to query the Uniswap UI. They need to get that information, right? For example, there is somebody known as CoinGecko, right? They need the information. There are different dashboards as well, I'm sure. You might have heard about cryptofee.info, very, very famous application to check different stats. They use the graph. Those kind of dashboards and the dApp itself with their info page do want to have the graph information or a specific information. And those are the consumers of the graph network. So just revise. Indexers that index a subgraph, curators that make sure in the whole market a particular subgraph is signaled so that indexers can index it, delegators who are allocating their tokens to the indexers, and the last ones are the consumers for which the indexers are indexing the whole information. So how does it work? Basically, the graph is a query market where you get all the information, right? It's a whole query market. Curate, you first of all, as a consumer or a developer, deploy your subgraph to that query market. Curators actually see whether that information or whatever you have posted might be something of value. You actually give your curation signal to that particular subgraph, right? And if you are somebody who has been the first one to curate on that particular subgraph, there is a bonding curve, and you get really good rewards for that. After that, there are indexers based on the amount of curation. Let's say you have done 10K GRT curation on a particular subgraph. Yeah, there might be 6 to 5 indexers, not taking like any specific hard code. But based on that, there might be 6 to 7 indexers indexing it. If there is a 100K curation, then there is a chance that 25 plus indexers will be indexing that particular subgraph, and that's how you decentralize the whole space. Instead of believing in one person, you're believing in 15 people. If it's an even more important thing, then you're believing in 25 indexers, so on and so forth, right? And the delegators just are taking information from the indexers. Cost of the service. So basically, once the information is indexed, the consumers would like to take that indexer information into their ends, right? And they have to pay for the queries. If you're deploying a smart contract on Ethereum, you have to pay the gas cost, right? And that's going to the validators of the Ethereum network. Similarly, in this particular stack, in which you are reading the information from the blockchain, you would need that kind of information as well. And for that, you need to pay a query fees, right? So basically, if you are a consumer, you are paying the query fees, right? And 90% of it goes to an indexer, 10% of it goes to the curator who told that this subgraph is important. So this is how you sustain these models of the decentralized infrastructure. So as of now, there are 165 indexers on the graph, 10,000 around delegators, 2,500 around curators, and about 400 subgraphs deployed on the graph network. And this has been just a 1-year growth. If I tell you the stats, this is how it looks. And this is not our stat. This is written by Maheshwari, one of the very reputed crypto reporters, right? If you can see, the query fees has jumped like anything. When you are building a SaaS, like, free of cost model, people are like, okay, yeah, we'll use it because it does not cost us. But when you move to the decentralized infrastructure where people have to understand how the graph works, how the curation works, how do we query the information from GRT, that's a little tough thing. But if still, because there is a product market fit, if people are moving to the graph network and querying and seeing this kind of adoption, then I believe it's kind of a standard, like what we call as EVM standards. We have created subgraph standards so that eventually we can query blockchains in a really nice kind of an information way. And I think subgraphs or the subgraph standard is the way to do that. And to decentralize this whole space, we have the graph network. I think in all the Web3 networks, accruing value, we are the second. Arweave is the first, and the second one is the graph. And I believe this is very important. Right now, we don't look at these investment fundamentals and stuff like that. But if your protocol has to sustain, it has to accrue a value, right? And the graph, I believe, has been successfully able to do that. And I think as we go multi-blockchain, as of now, you can only deploy a subgraph on the Ethereum network if you are indexing Ethereum. When we go to other chains, like I told, hosted service has 39 chains. When you go multi-chain, we can do the same with the graph. That will increase the query fees as well as adoption of the whole decentralized querying model via the graph network as well. The number of subgraphs deployed on the graph network, it's like a 2,300% YOY increase, which is insane. I don't think any startup in the Web 2 world or the Web 3 world has got that kind of an adoption, especially moving from incentivized zero fee model to a query fees model, which is highly sophisticated. So I would encourage you guys all to join the moment, be a part of the decentralized space, be a part of the decentralized infrastructure, join the mission, BUIDL on the graph, and please, please don't give up decentralization. Thank you.